Well, coming up on today's show, Faraday Future employees have turned to Gofundme, Electrify America have launched an EV education campaign, and BMW's dented by some upfront EV investment. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. In fact, wherever you are in the world, welcome to the podcast. It's EV News Daily. It's Thursday, the 8th of November, and it's Martyn Lee here with every EV story I can find today to save you time and to save you having to do the legwork. Thank you very much to the team at myev.com. They do help me make this podcast, and if you haven't checked them out yet in the USA, if you're buying, if you're selling, if you're just learning and researching about electric cars, a reminder, we've been making these shows together with myev.com for many months now, and people are still discovering it. Check them out. Coming soon, by the way, an event in the UK, the Zero Emission Network is holding an event in Old Street in London on the 14th of November. Their Twitter account has all the details if you'd like to attend. We'll start not with cars, but we are called EV News Daily. And if you count e-bikes as electric vehicles, because let's face it, not everyone needs to have a car. If you live in a city, maybe an e-bike or even an e-scooter will get the job done. The hot and very rain-free super summer of 2018 made e-bike sales in Nordic countries, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, skyrocket. The markets for electric bicycles in the three Nordic countries are growing to maturity, while in Sweden sales are showing much growth because the country now ranks amongst the largest e-bike markets in all of Europe, according to Bike Europe website. Well, next to the weather, the popularity of electric bicycles in Sweden actually got a boost because of the government. They're offering a subsidy on the purchase of e-bikes. The subsidy on purchasing a new e-bike resulted in a sale of 103,000 of them in the last 12 months. In 2017, the imports into Denmark of e-bikes grew between 2017 and 2018 over 10%, now 40,000 units in Denmark. In Finland, e-bike sales doubled this year, and they doubled last year in 2017. It's something that I've talked about on the podcast a little while ago. We were going through buying my wife an EV, a Renault Zoe, which is all done and dusted now, and she's in it and loves it. And even texted me today because she popped in to have a meeting somewhere and there was some free EV charging. So she plugged it in for 2 hours at 7 kilowatts, came out, it was fully charged, she loved it. She was like, this is great. She hasn't been to put diesel in her car for 3 or 4 weeks now, and she couldn't be happier. So I mentioned that after we did that, I'm going to get into an e-bike, either build an e-bike or buy an e-bike and do it properly, do it on YouTube, do some reviews, maybe do the building of it on YouTube as well. If anyone's done anything like that, please let me know. You can email the show hello@evnewsdaily.com. I love Micah. Micah Toll has a great EV bike school YouTube channel and recently been writing for Electric as well, which is great. Two of my favourite things coming together. So he's a source of great information, but if you have any more, then let me know and we'll get on to building an e-bike just for the hell of it, for the experience, to see, you know, I could go onto Amazon and buy one now for £1,000, but it'd be fun to kind of learn the ins and outs, wouldn't it? I want to do that when I get a spare 5 minutes, and that doesn't happen very often at the moment. Moving on to a company facing some hard times, and particularly the employees of Faraday Future. It's heartbreaking for the people who have dreamed a dream and were working on their own vision for an electric future after a funding dispute with the latest investor that they had from Hong Kong. Faraday Future have furloughed all the manufacturing employees at its factory in Hanford, California, who had been with the company just less than 6 months since the funding to produce the car was procured in June. That does include most of the manufacturing employees. Other employees, like managers, are on reduced salaries, and the company is currently seeking new funding. It's not the end of the road yet. Things aren't looking great, and we wish everyone the best of luck. Green Car Reports says that the Gofundme campaign is now up and underway, and employees have turned to the internet and crowdfunding. Gofundme was launched by Hector Padilla, the manager of tooling and equipment for Faraday Future's body in white production. According to the Gofundme page, employees currently on furlough, those which have children and house and car payments, and no other backup plan will get priority for a little slice of any money raised. So far, it's raised $16,000 towards a $50,000 goal. Good luck to them. That is heartbreaking. Faraday Future are a company that have not only made very big promises, but actually produced in very limited examples, actually something to see and touch. But it's an expensive thing to do, to build an electric car from scratch, as they are finding out, and we wish them all the very best of luck with finding some new funding, but particularly for every employee of the company. Electrify America today announced a collaboration with 6 organisations in California to help develop and launch community-based programs which are going to support EV education. Now, Electrify America, although it had to be funded by VW following Dieselgate, and they had no option in that, it is brand neutral. So brand neutral awareness of EVs. And it's particularly aimed at sort of half the money of Electrify America. I think it's like half the money is going to go to California alone. This particular tranche of money is aimed at disadvantaged and low-income communities. Electrify America is investing $2.7 million in this particular outreach campaign, and we applaud them for that as well. Like I say, they had no choice, really. So, well done, VW. You were going to do it anyway because you were told this is your penance. However, it's good news to hear about these lovely little good news stories happening as more people are educated and made aware of EVs. And that's the thing, running an EV is so much cheaper than running a fossil car. Now, I don't know what gas prices are doing in the US. I hear they're coming down from American radio that I'm listening, like the odd comment of like, hey, gas prices have gone down a bit more. So maybe that's not such a struggle at the moment. But the initial outlay of getting into an EV, yes, that's more expensive. And yes, that does prohibit those from disadvantaged communities. Once you've got one, well, electricity it's kind of everywhere, and also much cheaper than getting gas. But like I say, I'm not an expert on gas prices in the US. So again, if you can fill me in comments, YouTube, Facebook, email, let me know how all that is going. Motorists think it's unfair for EV owners to use the roads without paying some sort of fuel excise down under in Australia for the upkeep of the roads, and it's led to calls for a user pays road tax, according to a survey of 18,000 motorists by the toll road operator Eastlink. So I'll just say here, the survey's been done by a company that builds toll roads, so they got some skin in the game, I believe is the phrase. 47% of people in this survey think that EVs should be paying their way. 37% said it's fair for cleaner cars to use the roads without paying some sort of excise, according to 9 News. Well, rather than forcing motorists to pay registration and tax on cars, Infrastructure Australia says a user pays model allows direct charging that reflects each user's own consumption of the network, including the location, the time, the distance of travel, and the individual characteristics of the vehicle, like weight and emissions. Respondents looking to buy a vehicle in 5 years' time favoured EVs in this new survey. 40% had a preference for some sort of hybrid power. 32% said that within 5 years they'd be driving electric. And I absolutely agree with the Australians on this one. And why not? If somebody buys a car and does 1,000 miles a year, or if a haulage firm does 100,000 miles a year in a very heavy truck, which one's going to eat up the roads more? Even if someone drives 1,000 miles a year round their little local town at 30-mile-an-hour speeds, but someone drives 40,000 miles a year on business, but does 60, 70 miles an hour on the motorways and the freeways, well, then they should pay more. Is that just me? Am I alone in this opinion? Surely, when it comes to EVs, in this country, EVs are exempt from any tax. That has to change. We have to start paying for the roads. What I don't want to pay is exactly the same road tax as someone who drives a massive diesel SUV that's heavier, so it's going to chew up the roads more, has more of an impact on the environment with the emissions as well. So that has to be worked out somehow. But I don't mind paying per mile. It just makes sense. The more you drive, the more you pay. Now, that is toxic to any politician. So, my prediction, I'm putting my flag in the sand now, it's not going to happen. In countries where people aren't used to paying, it ain't going to happen because politicians won't vote it through. Now, when we drive in the continent, through France or Spain, when I've been to the US and we hire a car and we drive, I mean, other countries are way more used to toll roads. I travelled over a big bridge. It's called the Dartford Crossing at the weekend in our car, and it's like a couple of quid, and you pay it online, and you've got until the following day from when you cross it to go onto the website and pay your £2.50 or whatever it is. And there's a few other toll roads, a few big bridges, some nice roads in the UK. But it's really, I mean, tolls are very, very rare here in the UK. We're in the culture of the roads are just there. They belong to all of us and we can use them. So what do you think? I'd love to know. You know, maybe that would be a really good question of the week sometime in the future, because I feel like I've talked enough now. I'd like to hear from you. So maybe I'll stick that in the list of future questions. But we got to pay for roads somehow, and those that drive more should pay more. The fact that I have an electric car and don't pay anything, look, selfishly, that's fine. But at some point, I've got to start paying. Well, a new Reuters report today says that German car maker BMW will deepen its cost cuts after higher development expenses contributed to a 27% drop in the third quarter profits, falling short of analyst expectations as currency effects also taking a toll. Separately, BMW said it's going to purchase some very specific raw materials like cobalt, and they're going to make those raw materials available to its own battery cell suppliers. It's a way that BMW see as having a degree of control over the supply chain of electric car batteries. They need them on scale, and they don't want to rely completely on a third party, so they're securing the raw material contracts, but then they're providing them to battery cell manufacturers. BMW is establishing a technology consortium with the Swedish battery manufacturer Northvolt and Belgium's Umicore to develop a value chain for battery cells in Europe, development, production, and ultimately, at the end of life, recycling. Hyundai in South Korea. Hyundai Motor has raised its stake in Southeast Asia's tech market with a new $250 million investment in the Singapore auto tech firm Grab. Well, Hyundai and its affiliate company Kia will establish a partnership with Grab. They're going to launch a series of electric vehicle pilots across Southeast Asia from next year. The partnership plans to conduct research into how electric cars can be efficiently deployed in hot and humid climate conditions, particularly. Well, moving to China, and 4 car companies are all going to sell exactly the same car for a very convenient reason. Let me fill you in. Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi and Fiat Chrysler are all putting exactly the same car on sale. What's weird is that it's the same car, says Jalopnik. The actual designer of the vehicle is GAC, or Guangzhou Automotive. In the States, you might know it as Trumpchi, as in Donald and then CHI on the end. Trumpchi. I haven't heard that brand, by the way. Automotive News China says that the approach, which is pretty atypical in an industry with its own distinct design language for each of its brands, is all about gaining an edge and, in a way, ticking a box. It's going to help these new strict emissions in China be met more quickly by Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi and Fiat Chrysler. All of them without particularly advanced pure EV battery products that they can wheel out. I'm being very kind with what I'm saying, because some of them have ignored EVs completely, or some of them have gone the route of just soft hybrids. Not our favourite thing on the podcast. Well, car makers are trying various tactics to avoid being placed at a disadvantage by these Chinese regulations in the world's biggest auto market. Designed to make China's roads greener, the rules favour EVs, and it presents a threat to the profit margins of those big auto makers that are relying on gas guzzlers for their revenue. So, Toyota is going to sell the full electric version of the car, made by Guangzhou. It's going to be called the GS4. So Toyota have a full electric car. Apart from the Prius Prime, it's going to be in China, and it's not even their car. Mitsubishi are going to sell exactly the same car, but it's going to be a plug-in hybrid. I'll put a link to the article in the show notes if you want to see the rather cynical way that some people are getting around some of the new rules that are coming in. Final story today, and we'll talk about BYD, aka Build Your Dreams. It's presenting a mobile charging station for its electric buses. We'll finish up on this story from Electrive, and I found this a couple of days ago, but there's been so many amazing EV stories in the last couple of days. It's always on my list of things to cover, but I run out of time. And there's been so many incredible good news stories over the last week. It just makes me feel so good to hear all these stories. And it annoys me when I have to wait a couple of days to get one on the podcast. China's leading bus maker, BYD, and their British partner, Alexander Dennis, presented a new version of their electric bus, which is called, at least in this country, it's called the Enviro 200 EV. And they showed it off at the Eurobus Expo in Birmingham. The 10-metre EV electric bus features an extra big space for a wheelchair and also a mobile charging station. The bus is equipped with a mobile charging unit built by BYD. It's small enough to be carried on board, but it enables the operators to trial these electric buses all around the country without installing hardcore permanent charging infrastructure. Also on display at the Eurobus Expo was the all-electric double-decker. Now, as someone who I cycle in London most days, regular listeners of the podcast all may know that I live 2 hours outside of London. By the beach down on the south coast, somewhere called Poole in Dorset. But I have a 2-hour commute to work. It's mad, I know. And I commute into London 5 days a week for my day job. And so once I get to London, I cycle, though, from Waterloo Station to Soho, where I work. And I do it on a bike that is one of these hire ones that's £2 a day, and you can hire the bike. And that's great. Bike sharing is brilliant. I use it for half an hour a day, and then it gets used the rest of the time. It's a great model. Okay, I love this bike sharing scheme that's happening all around the world now. It's the docked bicycles. It's not the ones that are free, kind of freestanding, and those are the ones that are littering cities. These are the docked ones, and they don't seem to have that problem with them just piling up, and you see thousands of them in China and stuff. So when I cycle behind these diesel buses, it really does make me sick. I mean, some of the buses operating in London, I'm sure they've ticked every emissions box, but I do sometimes tweet a picture or I email a picture to the different bus company. When they pull away and you get this huge plume of black smoke out the back, something's not right. Something has failed on that bus and the engineers haven't picked it up. And I never get a reply, but I will continue to email pictures when I see a particularly dirty, stinky bus. But you see more and more of these electric ones, and it feels so good when you're cycling behind a pure electric bus. They're more quiet, there's no smell. These are all the BYD buses in London. I'm seeing loads of them now in London, and it's so good that there's going to be double-decker versions on the way, and I really can't wait to see more of those. It's an amazing feeling to see more of those around. So much work to do outside of the middle of the city where the buses go further out. There are the stinky diesels, but still, work's being done, and that's a good thing. Thank you very much to everyone who has contributed to our question of the week. So far, here it is, set by myev.com. What is your ideal way to get into driving an EV, if you don't already? And if you do, how did you do it? Did you buy a car? Did you lease a car? I mean, when I say buy, did you buy one outright? Or did you go for a lease because you weren't sure about the technology? Or did you rent one? Do you subscribe? Would you like the subscription model if you're not already an EV owner? Would you prefer a car sharing scheme? So tell me how you did it or how you'd like to do it in the future. If you're EV curious, you can email the show. My email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com. That's hello@evnewsdaily.com. You can leave a comment on the YouTube and the Facebook comments. My blog has a feedback form as well. Thank you to the 115 patrons of the show who support this show on patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Without them, you wouldn't be listening to this. And if you'd like to be part of that club, I would love to invite you to check out patreon.com/evnewsdaily, see what it's all about. And if you want to add your name to that number, there are 289 previous episodes online for free. I believe in giving all this away. If you don't want to do the Patreon thing, it's fine. It'll always be free. I love giving all this away for free. 289 episodes are online in the places you get podcasts from. If you subscribe, you get them first and free and automatically. And if in return, all I ask of you is a little rating or a review, my God, that'd be amazing. If you want to catch up on the socials sometime over the next day, catch me on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter by searching EV News Daily. In the meantime, do have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow.